The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Present.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. 10 present. You have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in an opening reflection and prayer by Artistic Executive Director of Circus Harmony, Jessica Hentoff.
Thank you. I've never heard what I did called a prayer before, but here we go. I am Jessica Hentoff, otherwise known as the Circus Lady from Circus Harmony. We are St. Louis's only social circus school, which means we use the teaching and performing of circus arts to motivate social change by building character in individuals and building bridges between communities. We say circus teaches the art of life. So while you're learning to flip, fly, and fling, you're learning important life skills like focus, persistence, and teamwork. Life is about juggling your responsibilities and balancing your priorities. All of you work on balancing. You have to balance your personal and your political lives. You have to balance the budget. I assume that's your job, part of it. You have to balance the needs and wants of your constituents with the needs and wants of the constituents of other wards. Circus Harmony has alumni that have come from pretty much every ward represented here and gone on to tour the world with shows like Ringling Brothers, Cirque du Soleil, and we have one alumni who walks the high wire with the Flying Walendas. You might have seen her at Circus Flora, standing on her husband Alex Walenda's shoulders, 30 feet up in the air. And she will tell you, when you are walking the wire, if you feel like you are losing your balance, you don't stop and fight to regain it. The best way to keep your balance is you take the next step forward. That's how you regain your balance, by going forward. Now, I don't know how to balance budgets and all that stuff, although I run a nonprofit and I have a board of my own that makes sure that I do that. But we're going to teach you a little bit about balancing circus style. So I don't know if you knew that Cecilia Boyers is a circus performer and teacher. She is an acclaimed aerialist and has been taking classes. We're based right at City Museum. Hop, skip, and a jump from here. She both takes and teaches classes. We do have adult aerial classes. We have classes for ages 3 to 93. And our oldest student at 93 did trapeze. Now we are giving you all a peacock feather to learn to balance. And this is something, if you guys get a break, you might do it as a stress reliever. When you are balancing a peacock feather, you keep your eye on the eye of the feather. Put your palm out, put the point on your palm, and you don't look at the bottom, you look at the top, and follow that. Stay with the top to keep it balanced. Try it. What's the worst that can... There you go. There you go. Go, Anne. You represent my ward at City Museum. There you go. Give it up for balancing Bean over there. Courageous Kara. Keep your eye on the eye. So that's a simple balancing lesson. So I want you to remember to keep your eye on the eye, to take a step forward if you start to lose your balance, and that also at the circus we found strength and flexibility combined with balance will get you the best results. I have two other things I want to invite you to do. One is we do over 600 shows a year at City Museum. Anytime the museum is open, we have a little half-hour mini shows. Cecilia had a one-woman show. It was about quitting her job. but she stopped doing that show when she took this job. We also have a big annual full-length show. It opens tomorrow. It's called Unbound. Please come and see 12 extraordinary children performing feats of balance, object manipulation, and flight. And all of you are invited on Thursday nights. We have Juggling Club and Balancing Club. You can drop in and take it. Cecilia is also giving you my card. Call me. I'm happy to get you into our show. Anytime the next Saturday and Sunday, the whole month of February at 2 o'clock. And Juggling Club is at 5:30. Balancing on a Unicycle Club is at 6:30. And you will not be the oldest ones there. And also, who doesn't love a sticker? So this is our mascot, Maple, balancing on a wire and juggling some of the arts of life that you can learn with circus. So I hope during this session you do keep your balance. Just keep moving forward. And thanks for letting me make your day a circus day.
We will dispense with the regular order of business to take up the first reading of resolutions and reference to committee. Alderman from the 3rd, you are recognized on the fourth. You are recognized. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. So Alderman from the 3rd, you're recognized on the first reading resolution 249.
Sorry, is this the resolution for suspension of the rules, or?
No, we are on your resolution 249.
Thank you for the clarification, Madam President. Resolution 249, I would ask for consideration from the members of this body as a resolution supporting our refugee and immigrant community here in the city of St. Louis and across the country. I believe, as many of you know, those communities are currently being targeted by the executive administration. Locally, we've had a number of raids on businesses throughout the city by federal agents in support of mass deportations. And these communities make up the fabric of our great city. They make up the fabrics of our neighborhoods, and I would ask for this body's favorable consideration on Board Bill 249.
Alderman, are you asking for unanimous consent?
I am asking for unanimous consent on Resolution 249.
Hearing no objection to unanimous consent, would you now like to ask for adoption?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I would like to ask for adoption of Resolution 249.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 3rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we adopt resolution number 249. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those, are you at the mic? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 4th, you are now recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing resolution 250.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we suspend the rules for the introduction of Resolution 250.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Resolution 250. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderman Oldenburg. Aye. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Aye. Thank you, Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderman Browning. 14 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 4th. Alderman from the 4th, you are now recognized. Resolution 250.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I request unanimous consent on Resolution 250.
Hearing no objection, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is a resolution that changes the last day to introduce board bills for this session. It would change it to today.
We please keep side conversations down. I'm having a hard time hearing the Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President. So this would, it's a resolution that would set today, January 31st, as the last day to introduce board bills for the session. Per our Rule 63, the President has authority to designate the final day to introduce board bills through a resolution. The date was chosen to ensure passage of several key board bills that would provide pay increases for city workers from various departments before this session ends. The timeline for these pay bills is tight because of the union contract negotiations that wrapped up last week, and the Civil Service Commission that approved and voted on them this week. So there is some urgency here because we're going to go down for break, and we want to make sure that the raises are on employee checks as fast as we can to make sure that we can keep and maintain a vibrant workforce. So I would encourage us to not unnecessarily delay these and get the workers what they should have on their checks. Thank you.
Do you like to make a motion to adopt?
Yes, I move that we adopt Resolution 150. Second. 250.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adopt resolution number 250. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, if the sponsor would yield.
Would the Alderman from the 4th yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 12th?
Absolutely.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
I'm sorry, so things were breaking up, so I couldn't hear you. So if you would go over that a bit more, so you're planning, or is it on the agenda today to introduce board bills regarding the raises of some of the members that work for the city? Is that what I heard? Because it was breaking up.
Yes. Essentially, with the passage of this resolution, we're changing the last date to introduce board bills to today because there were contracts between there were negotiations between the administration and several unions, which resulted in an agreement for most workers a 3% raise, I believe. And I would like to, and I think several of us here would like to ensure that those raises are reflected on city workers' paychecks before we go down for break, since we know that's a bargained for deal.
I agree, except for that I don't agree 3% is a bargain. I wish we would have given the workers a lot more. And I think you and I and several other people didn't vote for the budget because we didn't think that people, the raises were big enough, but some raise beats none. So and the faster you can get a raise, that's great. So I was looking at the agenda, and so I guess we're going to suspend the rules to introduce those bills, or I'm missing them someplace in here. Oh, so we're just going, from the previous one, we're going to suspend the rules. That was what we did.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that happen? Okay, because I'm not hearing well, so I thought we were doing something for Alderman Cohen about the immigrants. Are we doing something else also?
We will be suspending, assuming the passage of this, we'll be suspending the rules for first read for the introduction of these bills.
That's what I was asking. So we have some board bills to go along with this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
They should be in the drive.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adopt resolution 50. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Up in the gallery, I have President from the 14th Ward, Mr. Doug Ellis. I hope I didn't get the last name wrong. He's like I say, a resident of 14th Ward, as well as one of the key members of the Hyde Park Association. And I also see the legendary former SLPS school board member, Ms. Joyce Roberts. If we could all make them feel welcome and give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, January 24th, 2025.
I'm sorry, Madam President. Can I stand in the gap with of honored guests?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. This morning up in the gallery, I would like to welcome from Bridgeport, Connecticut, we have Callie Hyman and Jameem. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but it's similar to my name. They are President and Vice President of the social change organization Bridgeport Generation Now, and they're here to build collective power and strengthen civic engagement in communities. Thank you all for being here. Welcome, and to your host, our brother in service, Ronnie Amin, welcome this morning.
Now, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, January 24th, 2025.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, January 24th, 2025.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we approve the minutes from Friday, January 24th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, C, and D of the agenda and has been placed in the Google Drive for your review. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Board of Adjustment: Rosalind Jackson, Carmelo Desmond, Joseph Kisling, and Mona Parsley. I respectfully request your approval. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' appointments to the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Excuse me, I move that we approve the appointment of Rosalind Jackson. That we send to committee the appointments of Rosalind Jackson, Carmelo Desmond, Joseph Klitzing, and Mona Parsley.
Are you wanting to send to the HUD's committee?
Sure.
Okay. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th. Is there a second? Second by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we send the aforementioned appointments to the HUD's committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Westminster Lake Special Business District: Sally Novokalich and Philip Willman. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 9th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' appointments to the Westminster Lake Special Business.
Thank you. I move that we accept the mayor's appointments of Sally Nikolaevich and Philip Willman to the Westminster Lake Special Business District.
Is there a second? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderperson from the 1st, that we approve Mayor Jones' appointments to the Westminster Lake Special Business District. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman from the 6th? No. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Missouri History Museum Sub-District: the appointment of Thomas Grady and Gilberto Pinella. I respectfully request your approval. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderwoman from the 6th, you are recognized on Mayor Jones' appointments to the Missouri History Museum Sub-District.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to send these both to the Legislation and Rules Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we send the mayor's appointments to the Missouri History Museum Sub-District to the Legislation and Rules Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendar? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to take Resolution 186, 187, 189, 191, 192, and 193 off of the informal calendar and place them on second read resolution.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bills 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, and 181.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we suspend the rules for the introduction of the aforementioned.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing Board Bills 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, and 181. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderman Oldenburg. Aye. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Aye. Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Aye. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Browning. 14 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from the 4th. If you could please place the aforementioned bills at the end of the first reading of Board Bills.
So noted.
First reading of Board Bills.
Board Bill 173, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance to regulate employer and employee working relationship between the City of St. Louis and all employees under the classified service, including compensation plan, terms and conditions of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, authorization for a deferred compensation plan, repealing ordinance number 71686, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, including an emergency clause. The provisions of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. Board Bill 174, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance relating to the appointment of salaries for certain employees in the Recorder's Office pursuant to Section 86.82.610 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri by repealing ordinance number 71174, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, containing an emergency clause. The provisions of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective June 22nd, 2025. Board Bill 175, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance relating to the position classification and salaries of the employees in the Treasurer's Office, repealing ordinance number 71690 and enacting in lieu thereof certain new sections relating to the same subject matter containing an emergency clause. The provisions of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval of the mayor. Board Bill 176, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance relating to the appointment of and salaries of certain employees in the Collector of Revenue's Office pursuant to Section 82.610 Revised Statutes of Missouri by repealing ordinance number 71685, allocating certain other employees of grade with rate, including an emergency clause. The provision of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. Board Bill 166, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance relating to the position classification and salaries of employees in the Parking Division, repealing ordinance number 71689 and enacting in lieu thereof certain new sections relating to the same subject matter containing an emergency clause. The provisions of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. Board Bill 178, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance relating to the appointment of salaries of certain employees in the Sheriff's Office pursuant to Section 57.530 Revised Statutes of Missouri by repealing ordinance number 71691 allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, including an emergency clause. The provision of the section containing this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. Board Bill 179, sponsored by Alderwoman Lord Keys, an ordinance regulating employer and employee working relationships between the City of St. Louis and all employees under the Circuit Attorney's Office, including a compensation plan, terms and condition of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, and authorization for a deferred compensation plan, repealing ordinance number 71905, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, including an emergency clause, effective date, and a pay clause cost estimate. Board Bill 180, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance to regulate employer and employee working relationship between the City of St. Louis and all employees under the Medical Examiner's Office, including a compensation plan, terms and conditions of employment, benefits, leaves of absence, and authorization for a deferred compensation plan, repealing ordinance number 71746, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate, including an emergency clause. The provision of the section contained in this ordinance shall be effective with the start of the first pay period following approval by the mayor. Board Bill 181, sponsored by Alderman Cone, an ordinance amending Title 11 as amended entitled Health and Safety by adding and enacting a new chapter 11.120, the Intoxicating Cannabinoid Control Code, pertaining to the sale of products containing intoxicating cannabinoids. That's the extent of first reading of board bills.
You could please send Board Bills 173 through 180 to the Budget and Public Employees Committee and Board Bill 181 to Health and Human Development.
So noted.
Reference to Committee of Board Bills.
The following bills were reported to the Budget and Public Employee Committee: Board Bills 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, and 180. The following board bill was reported to Health and Human Development: Board Bill 181. That's the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading report of standing committees.
The following board bill was reported out of the Special Committee on Reducing Red Tape. Board Bill 14, Committee Sub as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and President Green. An ordinance which amends certain sections of Chapter 8 of the St. Louis Revised Codes to streamline mobile food vendors' operations, to amend distant requirements and operating hours in which mobile food vendors may operate, to establish a mobile food court pilot program within a certain radius within the City of St. Louis, establishing regulations for designated city park days for mobile food vending, and amending vending districts. The following board bills were reported out of the HUD Committee with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 88, as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated May 28, 2024, for the 1100 Veronica Avenue area in the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 138, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller of the City of St. Louis to execute upon receipt of and in consideration of the sum of $1 and other good and valuable consideration a quitclaim deed to Remize Release and Forever Quitclaim unto Carol Wade, certain city-owned property located in City Block 3714, known and numbered as 4606 St. Louis Avenue, in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, 63115, containing an emergency clause. The following board bills were reported out of Legislation and Rules Committee with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 96, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and President Green, an ordinance amending Chapter 13.100 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis to establish a custodian of records for public governmental bodies, including the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. Board Bill 122, sponsored by Alderman Ryan, President Green, and Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance amending Chapter 3.20 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis to require all city boards and commissions to develop and adopt and requiring those rules to be available to the public on the city website, providing for Robert's Rules of Order to prevail whenever the rules of the city boards and commissions are silent, providing for training to be offered to the members of the board and commissions to ensure familiarity with rules, sunshine law, and Robert's rules. The following board bills were reported out of Health and Human Development with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 160, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance pertaining to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act 1996 as amended and the regulations promulgated thereunder, amending ordinance number 68109 as amended by ordinance number 71102 by designating a privacy officer and security officer to the Department of Health of the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 167, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the Department of Health to accept a local public health agency accreditation assistance grant award up to $239,890 from the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services for the purpose of investing in certain efforts and activities pursuant to public health reaccreditation, appropriating such funds to the Department of Health, authorizing the expenditure of such funds to fulfill the obligation of said grant to the extent funds are received, authorizing contracts and other documents to expend such funds to the extent received concerning an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of the Transportation and Commerce with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 145, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and linear feet of mooring in the New North Riverfront for the purpose of barge fleeting under certain terms and conditions for a period of 10 years with three-year mutual options to extend for 5 additional years as set forth in the lease agreement attached hereto, Exhibit A, containing a severability clause. Board Bill 146, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and Continental Cement Company, LLC. Board Bill 155, Committee Sub as amended, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, President Green, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance amending Section 1234 of Ordinance Number 71094, amending Section 10 of Ordinance Number 7076, and amending Section 11 of Ordinance Number 69427, modifying existing and adding provisions, certain prevailing wages and workforce utilizing compliance administration requirements for city public works, contracts, tax increment finance projects, abated projects, and city bonded projects, clarifying remedies for failure to comply with prevailing wage and workforce utilization requirements, setting forth certificate requirements by contractors, and containing a severability clause. The following board bills were reported out of Public Safety with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 169 as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderman Browning, President Green, and the following co-sponsors: Narayan, Aldridge, Keys, Oldenburg, Velazquez, and Clark Hubbard. An ordinance pertaining to the administrative fines and effective code enforcement for vacant and deteriorated property, containing definitions and a severability clause. Board Bill 170 as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderwoman Velazquez, President Green, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Aldridge, Alderwoman Keys, Alderman Oldenburg, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. An ordinance pertaining to fines and codes enforcement for vacant and deteriorated property, including increased fines for unsecured buildings and unlawful demolitions, directing monies from these fines of the city's existing vacant building initiative fund, expanding the use of this fund, containing a severability clause. Board Bill 171 as amended in committee, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, President Green, and the following alderpersons: Narayan, Aldridge, Oldenburg, Velazquez, Clark, Hubbard, and Keys. An ordinance to reconcile collection methods with the state statute by modifying existing ordinance to be more effectively and timely recover amounts owed to the city for fines, improvement costs as special tax bills, containing an effective date and the severability clause. That's the extent of second reading. Report of standing committees.
Report of special committees. Alderman from the second.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I move that this body discharge Board Bill 131 from the HUD's committee to the end of the regular perfection calendar.
It's been moved by the alderman from the second, seconded by the alderwoman first, that Board Bill 131 be discharged from the HUD's committee. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Just a question about why and what the intent is. And
Do you like to inquire of the alderman from the 2nd?
yes.
Alderman for the 2nd, would you yield to questioning from the alderwoman from the 7th?
Certainly.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Alderman. I just was curious about the reason for wanting to discharge it from committee, where you might like it to go. Certainly, you have a reason for proposing this. So, what's your reason and intention and purpose?
I would like to answer all that in reverse. I would like it to go to the perfection calendar, which Rule 66 states is allowable with a majority of members of the floor. The reasoning is to bring that bill to discussion, to have a debate on it, and to look to perfect it. Have it be another vehicle to support the wishes and the wills of the citizens of St. Louis.
And do you know if the sponsor of that bill is in support of that? Has this? Okay.
I'm not going to speak for the sponsor of the bill, but I would not be the rules dictates that any member at any time can discharge a bill. I'm being a co-sponsor of that bill, so I don't see a sort of a conflict or any kind of an ethics violation.
No, I know the rules. I was just curious
Sure.
about the reasoning. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, members of the committee. Will the alderman from the 2nd yield for questioning?
The alderman from the 2nd yield to questioning from the alderman from the 14th.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the floor, board. Alderman from the 2nd, I think it's, if we're going to start making these moves, I think we should lay it all out. Have you been in conversations with the alderwoman from the 7th on her legislation this last week or two to try to come to a place of compromise?
Alderman, the alderwoman from the 7th has lots of legislation. I'm not sure which ones you're.
Have you been in meetings in the president's office with myself and the alderwoman on compromise on 153?
I've certainly been in discussions on all sorts of legislation, and
So have
particularly
you-
the Board 151. Of course.
Have me and you talked this week about trying to come to compromise on the phone on 153?
I'm still compromising, Alderman. That's my.
So I would say yes. You don't. I mean, you're a lawyer or a banker. It's a simple yes or no. Either you've been in those rooms compromising or you haven't. As you've been talking with the alderwoman from the 7th about 153, did you tell her that you was going to discharge 131 today?
I don't see how that's relevant.
Is that a yes? That's a yes or a no. Okay.
I don't see how that's relevant, but no.
Okay, you didn't tell her. Okay, thank you. Will the alderwoman from the 13th yield?
The alderman from the 13th yield to questioning from the alderman from the 14th? Yes. Alderman, you may proceed.
Trying to think how to say this, because I feel like, we had a HUD's meeting, I want to say a week or so ago, where I seen you and the alderwoman from the 7th stand together, which I think was a kind of a beautiful sight to see as y'all was like working together, working with, it sounds like GSL, to try to come to a place that on the hearing, you also had seemed to be in alignment with. So have you been in conversations with the alderwoman from the 7th on like working together on a Rams bill?
So I guess my question, let's go back to the HUD's committee. Yeah, we stood together to compromise because we had worked with GSL on a compromise. Then we got hit with 10 amendments that knocked out the compromise.
So that locked out the compromise. Hold on, wait.
I'm not through answering.
You're not going to what?
Don't do that. I'm not through answering. You asked me a question.
Oh, you still talking. My fault. Go ahead. I didn't know you
And
were
so
still.
my second part to this is, when you sit up and you say, we did a compromise and we working together, then you came back and your president did 10 amendments to disregard the compromise, then you come back and say, oh, by the way, let's go back to where it was. That's not how this works. That's not how politics works. If we're doing a compromise, we should have stayed with the compromise. And so I think as being a senior legislator and the chair of the Black Caucus, that was disrespectful to me because, no, she did not talk to me again in detail on the next compromise. So I feel this bill needs to be redrafted for us to come to a real compromise.
Okay. My question is, did the Alderwoman in the HUD's committee, did the Alderwoman from the 7th Ward offer any? Did the Alderwoman from the 7th Ward who was working with you, did she offer any of those amendments?
I didn't hear your last point.
Did the Alderwoman from the 7th Ward offer any amendments during that HUD's meeting?
No, she accepted the amendments that were presented.
If I'm not mistaken, she didn't vote yes to accept those amendments.
At the end of the day, I didn't get a compromise. They didn't live up to the compromise, and I'm moving forward. 131 was the bill I originally spoke on. 131 was the bill that I stated we could take from 153 to negotiate into 131, and they came back with 153 with the 10 amendments, so it's no compromise.
So I want to be clear when you say they, because it's important for the record. The Alderwoman, and I yield my inquiry.
Alderwoman from the 7th and I had conversations, and we came up with a compromise. Then in the HUD's meeting, the compromise became null and void because we had 10 amendments that your committee, the HUD's committee, accepted.
Yes.
So that ended the compromise. There was no more compromise.
To be clear, that is a legislative process. They did accept them, but what I'm saying is the Alderwoman from the 7th who sit on the HUD's committee didn't bring those amendments forward. The Alderwoman or the president brought an amendment forward. There was, I think maybe I had an amendment for it just on like language, or no, the Alderman from the 3rd had an amendment to make sure that Southeast wasn't left out. And I know that he voted on that, and then the Alderwoman from the 1st with money that got shifted to that voted on that to make sure their neighborhood was part of it. But I hear what you're saying, that because of those amendments, you feel the deal was broke. I'm just saying that the Alderwoman from the 7th.
Point of order, point of order.
Please state your point of order.
Okay, hold on, let me get my, the motion is to just, hello?
It's not what you think. Settle down. Calendar and then let the rest of the meeting go. What I want to get into. What? Correct.
Point of order, could you speak to the mic so the people at home can?
So as soon as I find a microphone that can work, the motion on the floor is to discharge Board Bill 131. We are not discussing Board Bill 153 or compromises, and this, I have no idea why you're discussing.
Back up.
And this is not a motion.
This point of order not taken. This is germane to the discussion about the rationale for discharging 131. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you. If the Alderwoman from the 13th would continue to yield.
What did he say?
I said, would the Alderwoman from the 13th continue to yield? No. Okay. So for the record, she doesn't want to yield anymore. For the record, she doesn't want to yield anymore. And to be honest, I'm not trying to point fingers at the Alderwoman from the 13th if she has her own feelings, if she feels something was broke. I just want to go on record and be very clear that in our legislative process, if somebody bring a bill forward, folks can make amendments. And I know that the Alderwoman from the 7th, who is working hand in hand with the Alderwoman from the 13th at press conferences or that stood together at the HUD's hearing, did not make an amendment to change the bill and was not part of those amendments that came forward. And even if you look on the record, she didn't even vote for those amendments as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion, Alderman from the 3rd?
Thank you, Madam President, and our esteemed clerks. I agree with my colleague from the 14th Ward. There was a lot of discussion around the bill that passed out of committee. I don't see the reason why we need to discharge a bill from committee that had the opportunity to be heard, was asked not to be heard, and we proceeded with another bill. I rise in support of Board Bill 153 and opposed to discharging 131 from committee. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th. Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, if the alderman from the 14th would yield.
The alderman from the 14th yield to questioning from the alderwoman from the 12th. Alderman from the 14th. Would you yield to questioning from the alderwoman from the 12th?
Yes.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for taking my questions. We're not getting good reception here if you're not down on the floor today. So I want to make sure, which bill did the alderman from the, what is he, the second?
Yes. He made a motion to discharge Board Bill 131, the alderwoman from the 13th Ward, to discharge somebody else's bill.
Well, and he actually can do that. That is allowed with the rules. Okay, so 131 would be the alderwoman from the 7th bill?
No, 153 is the alderwoman from the 7th Ward. 131.
I never. Okay, so 153 is from the 7th and 131 is the one that he is a co-sponsor?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and 153 was discharged and 131 was held?
No, 153 was on the calendar because it got voted out of committee. 131 has been technically still held in HUDs and had, I think, one hearing on it.
Okay, and it was, to your knowledge, 131 was held because the sponsor asked for it to be held?
To my knowledge, I thought it was held because the alderwoman from the 13th and the alderwoman from the 7th were meeting with folks like GSL and others to bring a compromise. There was a press conference where both alderwomen stood with the mayor and the president, and at the last HUD meeting, the alderwoman from the 13th stood side by side, talked about compromise, and working with the alderwoman from the 7th. So that's why I thought that 131 was held, because they were working together.
Okay, but you don't know for sure if that was why it was held, because 131 was introduced before 153. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then 153 was voted out, but not 131. And then they met and had a meeting, and I saw a little bit of the press conference. I haven't been. The first time anybody ever spoke to me about either one of these bills was the alderwoman from the 1st a few days ago. Nobody spoke to me, so I keep hearing about all of North St. Louis, and I'm laughing because I'm like, no, there's no North St. Louis bill. Because talk to me. Okay, so I'm just trying to understand this. There might be a bill with some people from North St. Louis that's supporting it, but there's no North St. Louis bill. So my name is not on anything because I'm just trying to understand the whole process. So what I'm trying to understand, so if you've ever worked with somebody on a compromise, then if it's a compromise and one bill goes out, I know the legislative process, but don't you expect that that's going to be the compromise if you see the mayor and the president and the two primary sponsors all standing together? Isn't that what most people would expect to be the compromise?
Absolutely. You're right. And I think some of those amendments that happened in committee, some with some language change that was kind of left out, I think was probably part of making sure the alderwoman from the 13th made it clear she didn't want to leave out the alderwoman from the 1st Ward with the EGI language, so that was added. Maybe the numbers did not, that changed the compromise, but I think we also have in our drive a floor substitute for 153 that gets us back to the compromise language that the Alderwoman from the 13th and 7th presented in HUD's committee.
Well, I think everybody's going, so let me just say this, speaking to everything, I understand the alderman from the second's irritation and wanting to bring his board bill out, the board bill out. I think everybody's going too fast. I wish everybody would sit back down and try to work together. Everybody acts like we have to get this done in a certain amount of time. We do not. We also can have, if it's really a compromise that people are looking that people can feel comfortable with, the mayor can call us right back into special session with 3 days notice, and we can get something that everybody is comfortable with. I do think it's unfair if people thought that they had an agreement to then hold their bill and then change it.
Which is why this
Even if, I'm hearing a lot of background.
Well, let me turn my mic off.
noise.
Maybe that's what it is.
Okay. I don't think it's fair. I don't support the other bill that 131. I did support it because I had a lot of questions about it, but I do think it's unfair that it was held in committee and then it got changed and then we're changing it again. I think that that's a sucker punch and it makes so that people don't believe in what's going on. Even if the, wait, let me finish. Even if the sponsor doesn't agree with it, the sponsor's in control of her bill. And the sponsor could have just held that bill and said, then I'm going to hold it if you're going to change it and make sure that it was something that everybody was comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with either one of them the way they were written, but she should have held it in committee. I don't think that it should have come out, or she should have sent it back to committee. And you have to have good faith when you're negotiating. And I've been dealt that blow with some people down at that board who I thought I was negotiating with good faith, and they didn't do it. And that's why I don't trust them anymore. So you need people a lot of times, and it's better to tell people yes or no than to make them feel like that they've been sucker punched. And I just think that that's unfortunate that they feel that way. I'm not supportive of Board Bill 131, but I will support the alderman for taking it out of the committee just because I don't think that's the way to do legislation. And I've been doing legislation longer than any of you all down here and most of you all put together. That is not a good way to do legislation. I have no further questions.
Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Since we're still talking about the discharge, and even though the Alderwoman from the 12th was inquiring me, if I can inquire of the Alderwoman from the 12th.
Alderwoman from the 12th, would you yield to questioning from the Alderman from the 14th? Alderman,
Always.
you may proceed.
Thank you for always taking inquiry, disagree or not agree, or agree or don't agree. I just wanted to respond to some of the things you said. I totally understand. I think people's feelings of feeling like after what happened in committee that something changed. I wouldn't go as far as say that 131 was held in committee, because at any point I would say, you know, the sponsor could have, after that hearing, reached out to the chairwoman and said, hey, I want to have a hearing on the bill. I don't think that happened. And I do know that there's been a lot of conversations, even with the aldermen from the second ward who's trying to discharge this to after what happened in HUD's. I think it's important to be transparent, and you know. But after what happened in HUD's, is there have been conversations with those same stakeholders to try to figure out how do we get back to that compromise, regardless of what any actions, if it was a president or any alder made, to try to amend the bill. That's why I was just, I'm not gonna lie, there's been, you know, some dysfunction, you know, down here for a while, and, you know, sometimes maybe even between me and you, Alderwoman from the 12th, but it was beautiful to see the joint collaboration between the Alderwoman from the 7th and the Alderwoman from the 13th, because I think there has been a notion also that folks that, you know, some of us Northside Alders are just people of color can't get along. So when I was seeing that, it was almost like maybe we can start to reset, you know, and I honestly think some of the discharge being led by the Alderman from the 2nd is only trying to continue to keep up drama among certain Alder folks instead of trying to let them work out what that discourse is to figure out, hey, is this the way we move forward or is it not? So I just wanted to respond back to you because I know you had ended the inquiry. But if you had anything to say since I inquired of you.
I do have something to say. I don't know, I can't speak to what other people think. I know that I've been down here longer than most of y'all put together. And we had a functioning Black caucus when we had 28 members, and we had 13 at one point, and should have gone to 14 when they redistricted the 20th ward. We had the majority of African Americans in the city, and they did an illegal redistricting. And then when I came back in 13, I wasn't in the caucus. I want you to know that. And then I was asked to come back to the caucus, and we put together a functioning caucus. And you talk about the dysfunction. The dysfunction came in April 18th, 2020. What was it? 23, I guess.
23.
When you guys decided to take seniority off the floor and to take it away from people. And that's a dysfunction. And I hope that by now you guys have learned how that is a mistake to do that, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know a lot of things. You didn't get the benefit of nurturing that you would have gotten. You should ask all the women from the first or the fourth about, and even the president, who nurtured them when they came down here. There's a reason for seniority. There's a reason for people who know about what things have happened in the past. And you can't come and strike somebody and then talk about let's all be friends. That will not happen. That is exactly what I'm talking about. When you sucker punch people like that, and the president led that what I would call mistake, great mistake to do that. That is a mistake. Anybody, and a lot of you all may not have understood it, but I'm going to start now. I've been writing up the difference in what our rules are and what they used to be. They used to be where power was spread and you worked together, and the president didn't have sole dictator power like she does now. And all the old alder people who were here before know that. So what the president has in power now is way out of balance, and taking seniority is way out of balance. And I've watched some of the people try to run committees that they don't know what the heck they're doing, and they don't know the rules and don't know how to do it. And you're not putting anybody in their place. You're making a dysfunctioning board the way you say. And it's much more functional. It was much more functional. This is my 6th, 7th president. It was way more functional under other presidents. It's dysfunctional, and you guys don't know any better because you haven't served. And so the Black aldermen did work together. We worked together, and we worked with white aldermen, and we worked together with conservative white aldermen, and we worked together with the alderman from the 2nd. He and I worked together on stuff. So that's not true. If you're saying it is a function of this board, not because we couldn't get along, okay? And if you only know one way, then you don't know the other way. But we did get along a lot better than we do now.
I appreciate that, Alderwoman. I appreciate you taking my inquiry also. Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the alderman from the 2nd, seconded by the alderwoman from the 1st, that we discharge Board Bill 131 from committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. No. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
No.
Alderman Cone. 11 aye votes and 4 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. From the alderman from the 2nd, if you could please place Board Bill 131 at the end of the regular perfection calendar.
So noted.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
Board bills for perfection consent.
Board Bill 112, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel, 8th Street from Marion northwardly in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described, in accordance with Charter authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 152, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance approving a petition to amend the petition to establish the Soulard Community Improvement District to add certain real properties to the Soulard CID, adding certain real property to the Soulard CID, finding a public purpose for the addition of certain real properties of the Soulard CID, authorizing certain other actions, and containing an emergency clause and a severability clause. Board Bill 154, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance pertaining to the commercial semi-trailer trucks, also known as semis or tractor trailers, prohibiting such traffic along certain portions of Laclede's Landing neighborhood, exempting from said prohibition emergency vehicles, including privately owned tow trucks when providing emergency service to non-commercial vehicles, vehicles making deliveries to nearby addresses, and vehicles with gross vehicle weight of less than 26,000 pounds containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 156, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge and Alderwoman Velazquez, an ordinance providing for unconditional vacation and abolish of public right-of-way in a portion of East-West Alley in City Block 974 as bounded by Sheridan Avenue, Elliott Avenue, Thomas Street, and Leffingwell Avenue, said alley beginning at 212.21 east of Leffingwell Avenue and continuing to a point previously vacated by ordinance number 61792 in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 158, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance approving removal of certain parcels of real property from the boundaries of the Carondelet Community CID as provided for in Section 67.1441 Revised Statutes of Missouri. Board Bill 159, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance authorizing the execution of to the redevelopment agreement between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and the Carondelet Broadway TIF, Inc. Board Bill 164, sponsored by Alderman Browning, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on various blocks in the 9th Ward. Board Bill 168, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 65280, ordinance number 65361, which was in part ratified in ordinance number 65423, section 501, ordinance number 6690, respectively dissolving the special allocation funds for 3800 Park Avenue and Gravois Plaza and 6175 through 81 Delmar redevelopment areas, respectfully terminating the designation of certain portions of authorizing certain actions relating hereto, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. That's the extent of board bills for a perfection consent calendar.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we adopt the board bills for perfection consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 150, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance approving the dissolution of the Cherokee Limp Special Business District by repealing ordinance number 63957.
Alderwoman from the 8th, you're recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 150.
Oh, it looks like I have some mic issues. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we perfect Board Bill 150.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we perfect Board Bill 150. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Board Bill 150 is a somewhat heartbreaking board bill. What it will do is to dissolve the Cherokee Limb Special Taxing District. As we all know, I mean, we've been having a lot of conversations down here recently about taxing districts, special taxing districts, and they're an awesome responsibility. When the Board of Aldermen authorizes a group of citizens, business owners, and property owners to tax themselves and take those tax dollars and spend them in ways that their boards find most appropriate, that's an awesome, very large responsibility. And as we know from recent audits at the state and local level, there have been problems with some of our taxing districts. And it is our responsibility as the authorizing entity to really ensure that our taxing districts are operating within the law. And it is unfortunate that this particular business is operating outside of compliance. And given that information that was presented to me this summer, simultaneously the board of directors approached me and said, look, we can't get along as a taxing district. We're having a lot of issues, and we recognize that we're operating outside of compliance, and we cannot find a path forward to address the issues and to essentially get along and agree upon a path forward. And so they petitioned me to dissolve the district. Given the facts of the matter that the district was operating outside of compliance, and the board of directors themselves this one is going off. I got a red button here. There's really no path forward other than to dissolve. Now, there's been some confusion in social media and other places about which taxing district we're talking about. There have been several taxing districts along Cherokee Street. Jefferson tends to be the dividing line. We have this taxing district, which operates to the east of Jefferson. It is a special business license tax as well as a property assessment. The other larger taxing district on the west side of Jefferson primarily is the district that resides almost exclusively in the 7th Ward but carries a tiny bit of the 8th. This one generates about $250,000. That one, generates about $250,000 a year and has staff and is fairly robust. The one that we're talking about today on the east side of Jefferson generates around $17,000 a year. And admittedly, they've done some good things over the past, but again, because of their lack of compliance, we really have to do our due diligence here and dissolve the district. We had some robust and lengthy conversations in the HUD's committee. I want to thank the chair of HUD's for accommodating not one but two discussions on the matter, hearing from the general public on both sides of the issue during both hearings, and really the committee coming to the conclusion that this was the best path forward. And with that, Madam Chair, I will entertain questions on my motion to perfect Board Bill 150.
Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, that we perfect Board Bill 150. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I noted it. Board Bill 161, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the City of St. Louis, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds, Anheuser-Busch LLC, Series 2025, and the principal amount not to exceed $41 million.
Alderwoman from the 8th, you're recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 161.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we perfect Board Bill 161.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we perfect Board Bill 161. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Board Bill 161 is an ordinance that will authorize the issuance of bonds to pay for manufacturing upgrades to the Anheuser-Busch brewery. What is the principal amount here not to exceed $41 million? That is for the bonds themselves and does not represent the tax benefit to the corporation, which was calculated and estimated to be a little over $1 million, $1.5 million, I believe. There is no real estate tax abatement associated with this. None was granted in this. And look, Thank you. Thank you. We're getting all mic'd up here. Okay, so Board Bill 161, again, it's not a tax abatement on real estate. What it does is allows us to essentially issue bonds to purchase manufacturing items tax-free, and so the corporation doesn't pay taxes to the city of St. Louis. And I think this is, a way to support Anheuser-Busch, which still has an enormous footprint in our city, employs a lot of people, a lot of residents, and generates a large amount of tax revenue. We were, as a city, as an entity, you know that we are no longer the headquarters of AB, but they have a national and international footprint. And this particular investment, we were in competition on the global level to land this. And this was a way to close the gap and make that investment happen here in St. Louis rather than going to one of the other Anheuser-Busch entities. And so I'm grateful for the commitment of Anheuser-Busch to the city of St. Louis, to our residents, and to the economic vitality of our community by making the choice to invest this new technology here in St. Louis. And with that, I'll take questions, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we perfect Board Bill 161. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Board Bill 153, Committee Sub as amended, and Committee sponsored by Alderwoman Sanye. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment and establishing the Board Bill 131/153 Transform St. Louis Act, authorizing and directing an appropriation in a total amount of $294 million of RAM settlement funds for deposit into various special funds with amounts as described herein containing a severability and an emergency clause.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 153, Committee Substitute as amended in committee. Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 153, Committee Substitute as amended in committee.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. There is so much to be said. I would like to make a motion to adopt the floor substitute of 153.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt the floor substitute for Board Bill 153, Committee Substitute as amended.
There's only one floor substitute.
There's apparently now a second floor sub that is in the drive. So floor sub number 1.
Floor sub number 1.
Which is sponsored by Alderwoman Sanye.
I don't.
Right.
No, this is just infrastructure. Yeah, my motion is for 153 committee substitute, floor substitute 1.
We first need you to perfect the original bill, and then we will take the floor substitute.
Okay, I make a motion to perfect 153 committee substitute as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill 153 substitute as amended. And now you may introduce your floor sub.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to adopt 153 floor substitute 1.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt 153 floor substitute 1. Is there any discussion on that?
She's got a different one.
I guess this is...
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman, you may proceed on 153 floor substitute.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Point of order.
Please state your point of order.
when asked for if we had any discussion, I just was asking for a point of clarification. There are several floor substitutes. There are two.
Yes,
one of which-
Alderwoman, we already covered that.
Madam President.
It is floor substitute number 1, sponsored by the Alderwoman from the 7th Ward that we are taking up right now, not the floor substitute 2, sponsored by Alderwoman Saunier.
Madam
Or
President,
Schweitzer.
if you don't mind, just a point of clarification for myself. We have a floor substitute on our desk. We have a floor substitute in the drive, both of which list both, or this one at least, lists both the Alderwomen as just a point of clarification. Are we to be looking in our drive right now or at the floor substitute on the desk?
Point of order.
For the third time now, Alderwoman, we are taking up floor substitute number 1, sponsored by Alderwoman from the 7th Ward.
Thank you, Madam President. This floor substitute
And that
on
is
our
in
desk
your
does
drive.
not have a number on it and is confusing to the vast majority of us, amongst whom we've been discussing the confusion. I appreciate the clarification.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you may proceed on 153 floor substitute.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. There is so much to say about 153 committee substitute, and in general, to have this conversation about how the city should spend its RAM settlement funds. I went back and forth in my mind a lot today about how to approach this conversation, what should be said, and I've just landed at I'm going to just say the truth, and I'm just going to be fully transparent. Obviously, this board knows that at one point there was competing bills. It was a very public narrative that there was this version of the bill versus another version of the bill. And as we sat and went through the committee of the whole process, which I had the pleasure of chairing, and heard from my colleagues every month and got feedback from over 16,000 residents about what they wanted, and especially once both bills were filed, what I heard constantly almost from every member of this body and from members of the community was a desire for, I know people have been saying compromise, but I actually would say that the real ask was for collaboration. I heard a lot of genuine asks of, if this is about the city of St. Louis and this is about the people, why would you be unable to work with, Alderwoman Boyd on a bill that works for both of you all? And I can say, I know today, especially for people at home and people who are in the gallery that are watching, that this probably looks very confusing, and we call legislating sausage making, and it is confusing, and it can be complicated, and we are human beings, and we have.
Could we please have some respect for those who are at the mic, and if you need to engage in side conversation, take them out of the gallery. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
And we have complex feelings as human beings who propose the legislation. But I think the first thing that I just want to say is, first of all, for everyone here, I want to just put on the record that the best part of this entire process was actually working with Alderwoman Boyd. It really was. It was so refreshing to be able to have genuine conversations with her, to be able to talk about our shared visions of the city, to be able to sit at a table and put a lot of the other things to the side and figure out a pathway forward based off of genuine love and connection for our city. So I just want to first, say that. And whatever has happened today has not changed my feelings about that the best part of this process has been the opportunity to work with Alderwoman Boyd. And I also want to acknowledge that we would not have 153, floor substitute without Alderwoman Boyd and without her input. The floor substitute, the difference between a floor substitute and what happened in committee is that the floor substitute restores the original version that both myself and Alderwoman Boyd agreed to. As a bill sponsor, when you go to committees and you present, you're not in control of what amendments go, and we have a democratic process that outlines it. But I had a conversation, and I'm a woman of my word, and I told Alderwoman Boyd, no matter what happens today, I'm going to be present, and I'm going to support what you and I agreed on. And I truly have, at every step of the way, done my best to honor that. And so putting the floor substitute in front of us that, is a replica of the funding amounts that Alderwoman Boyd and I agreed to is in honor of wanting to honor the word that I gave Alderwoman Boyd, but honestly, to show the city that collaboration is possible, that your leaders can come together and we can talk about hard things, and based off our love for you and based off of our shared desire to move city forward, we can come together and that can be the message. What is happening here and some of the things that we see playing out are a result of honestly outside forces that I think honestly both myself and Alderwoman Boyd did our best to kind of just sit down with each other and lock in and have an agreement, but that is our process, and that we do have a democratic process, but I do want to make sure that I go on record and say, I was not in support of the amendments that were made in committee. I voted present. I told every one of my colleagues that I would be voting present, and I made it clear that I will be supporting what myself and Alderwoman Boyd agreed to. So I want to make sure that I make that perfectly clear. The bill that is in front of us is the result of not just a 12, 14-month process of committee as a whole, and not just resident buy-in, but really I think the best part, just to be honest, there are so many divisions that exist, and unfortunately I think if you watch this body, sometimes it does seem like there are divisions between the north side of the city and the south side of the city. Sometimes it does seem like there are divisions between those of us who have been serving for some time and those of us who are newer. And I was so excited to get the opportunity to show the city and to show everyone that was watching today that those binaries and those divisions don't have to exist. And I do think the original version of 153, the committee substitute, is a replica of that. And I want to just acknowledge my colleagues that, the idea that what I agreed to was substantially changed and that was not what is now on the table is valid. And I do think those amendments did change it from what we agreed to. And I think they're absolutely accurate to say that this is not what I gave my word to. And I just want to also put on the record that in response to that is why the floor substitute that we are now discussing is actually the version that we discussed and had conversation after conversation with. It's actually the version that I was able to, have in-depth conversations and make sure it worked for both of us. And so I just wanted to address that first. I know there will be questions. I know there will be discussion on the bill. I know there are questions about, specific buckets, and I look forward to those discussions. But I also want to encourage my colleagues to think of our people and especially our children as a worthy investment. I do think infrastructure matters. I do think water matters. I think housing development matters. I think neighborhood development matters. But I also think that our children matter. And I think that there are clear things on the record that show that when you put things in place for a child, whether it's early childhood education or it's once that child hits 18 and you put supports for them to have higher education opportunities, I do think there are worthwhile pursuits. When colleagues came to the table and said, hey, that's too broad. For the city to start something that is citywide, that doesn't work. We think we need to start on a smaller scale. There was a decision to go back to stakeholders and to say less. I agree with them. I think it's very fair to say, let's scale this back. And so perhaps we should look at scaling this to city workers. I think the questions of, is this a worthwhile investment? Is this something that will support our city workers? I'm sure we will get into specific with questions. But we do have an aging workforce. And so I think the idea behind specifically the child care component, the STL promise, the workforce development, it was, okay, if we can't directly raise the wages of our employees, what are other ways that we could support them? What are other things that we could bring to the table to give to them? And so the people bucket is now all tailored to city workers, and it does mean there's a people bucket, but it is done in a way that presents it as a pilot that will require a vote from the body in order to expand it beyond to citywide access. So I just really wanted to put all of those things on record, and I wanted to, I think what's really most important to me is just to make sure that I make it clear that I understand all of the feelings that folks have and that I agree, honestly feel myself some of those feelings, and that I am doing the best that I can to honor, what was agreed upon, which I know that many of us in this body did agree to and said could work. Obviously, changes have happened, changes that are beyond, my control, or the person who I stood beside hoods is also beyond her control. So that is, that's what I would put on the table, and I look forward to what I hope is a robust discussion on this.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Rule 40. He's already been introduced. I have not. Or he's already been recognized. I have not. Rule 40.
Not on this bill, Alderwoman.
Has not been introduced. He has not spoken on this bill. Alderman from the 14th.
It doesn't say on the bill. It says recognized. Rule 40. Point of order, Rule 40.
It is denied. Alderman from the 14th, you may continue.
Thank you. Good try there. Will the Alderwoman from the 7th yield for question?
Alderman, you have to speak into the microphone and state your point of order.
I'm trying, okay. Yeah, point of order, appeal the decision.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the, I couldn't hear who, Alderman from the 2nd, to appeal the decision of the chair. Sorry. Alderman from the 9th, you are out of order. So Alderman from the 14th, you may proceed on your comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Will the Alderwoman from the 7th yield for questions?
Alderwoman from the 7th, will you yield to questioning from the Alderman from the 14th?
Yes.
You can't do that. I made a point of order. I cited the rule. There was a motion and a second.
You have to, there is an actual verbiage in the rule that you have to quote in order to make that point of order, which was not done, which
Great.
is why
Point of
your
order.
point of order was denied.
Okay, point of order.
Please state your point of order.
Rule 42, shall the decision of the chair stand as the opinion of the Board of Aldermen?
All right, now you've done that appropriately, Alderman from the 9th. It has been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 2nd, that we appeal the decision of the chair. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Yeah.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Ryan. Alderman Balmer.
No.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Pass.
Yes.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sanye.
Pass.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning.
No.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge.
Yes.
President Green.
No.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Ryan.
Madam Chair, please switch me to yes. Apologies.
Important to know the motion.
I'm sorry, it was 3. President Green, you said switch yours to yes, correct? Alderwoman Velazquez.
Point of order.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Pass.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Point of order, I'm sorry. I'm not able to hear, so I couldn't hear what exactly we're voting on, okay? I'm sorry.
It was Rule 42, wasn't it?
We are voting on whether I had ruled that the Alderman from the 14th had the floor and that the Alderwoman from the 1st had to wait to speak. And there was a motion to overrule my decision about allowing the Alderman from the 14th to proceed with his remarks.
I'm voting present because I don't have enough information. Present.
Fair. I'm with you, Alderwoman Tyus.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Pass.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
How many passes are we allowed? Point of order, how many passes are allowed during a vote?
Well, that's been two. Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
That's 3 aye votes, 10 no votes, and 2 voted present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the alderman from the second. And at this time, I'm going to put us in recess until Tuesday for
What?
till Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Point of order.
42, point of order. Look at all these.
Doesn't have